Let us begin with the new section. So, this section is going to deal with a very important body that is called as World Trade Organization. We are going to see the different kind of functions this WTO performs, and we are also going to see a kind of case study which talks about the debate on trade practices that are there in our world. Then we see the kind of impact globalization has played on India in different sectors, and also we will be able to see the different challenges globalization faces in the Indian economy. First challenge is there is the challenge of small producers, whether they have to involve in the competition with the foreign producers or they have to perish. So that is the first challenge. And then again, there is the second challenge that there is so much competition once liberalization has happened that has ultimately resulted in lesser employment for many people because they are not able to compete with such foreign producers. Then we will evaluate the kind of struggle that has to be taken place for a fair globalization to happen throughout the world, and we will finally see the kind of different examples of the Indian government policies to facilitate and bring about fair globalization, right? So without wasting any time, let us head on with this section. First, let's begin with WTO, World Trade Organization. So, we have seen in the earlier classes that once liberalization of foreign trade and foreign investment in India happened, so these were supported by many powerful international organizations. So, what did these organizations exactly have to say? They said that all the kind of barriers or restrictions that have been put up by governments, so these barriers are very harmful to the government, to the country. And the kind of trade, that is import and export between different countries, should be kept free. And all countries in the world should liberalize their policies just like India did in 1991. So WTO is one such organization who had the last three aims and ultimately to liberalize the international trade. So how did it just begin? So it is an initiative of the developed countries, and WTO establishes rules and regulations when it comes to international trade, and it makes sure that these rules are obeyed by the different countries who are a part of WTO. So currently there are around 164 countries of the world who are members of WTO. And WTO is also this body who is supposed to be the overseeing monitoring body for free trade. But it is also seen that the developed countries definitely have an upper hand when it comes to trade. So let us see that via a case study. So let us see the kind of debate on trade practices. So as you know, the agricultural sector, that is the primary sector in India, takes up a bulk of employment and a large amount of GDP. And also, you know, USA is a developed country, and the share of agriculture in GDP is at 1%, and share in total employment is at 0.5%. And hence, comparing to India, it is very low. But now you've seen two contrasting countries here, where India is total agriculture and USA does not have a lot of importance to agriculture. So, but you have seen that these engaged in agriculture in the US, they get a lot of money from the US government to increase their production and ultimately send that whatever they produced for exports to other countries. So, due to the kind of massive money that is supported by the government, so these farmers can sell the large amount of products that they've produced at low prices to different kind of countries, to different countries who are in need of such products. The surplus farm products are sold in other countries at very low prices, definitely affecting the farmers in those countries, like such suppose India, where there's a lot of production, but these exports that they have received from the US is at a high competition level. So it is not at par. So what exactly are the developing countries demanding? For example, what exactly is India demanding out of this entire scenario? They are asking the developed country governments, that is the US governments, that we have reduced the trade barriers as per what WTO is told. That is, we have allowed for your exports to enter our markets. But you have ignored the rules and the regulations that WTO has put up, and you have continued to pay your farmers so much of money. And you have also asked our governments to stop giving money to our farmers, but you are doing that yourselves, right? That is not fair. This is not what fair globalization is, and this is exactly what WTO has to regulate. It has to regulate this kind of inequality that is happening between developed and developing countries, right? So, do you exactly think this is free and fair trade, where the developed countries already having so much development and already having so much money is helping their countries which do not even have so much importance in agriculture? And in this way, the developing countries who have so much importance for agriculture in terms of GDP and employment are not getting the real benefits that they are entitled to. Do you think this is free and fair trade? So let us see now the impact of globalization in India. So in the last 20 years, that is at least from the year 1991, there has been massive impact that globalization has taken over Indian economy. So have you ever wondered what has been the kind of effect globalization has had on the lives of people? Definitely, we have greater choice between goods that we have discussed in the previous slide. But also let us see the kinds of different effects that has been on people's lives and their livelihoods with some evidences. So globalization has uh, given rise to different kinds of high competition between producers of different either at the same country level or different countries, and this has been advantage to consumers like us because especially in the well-off sections in the urban areas, because of a greater choice of goods and greater affordability to people in the urban areas. And definitely, because of greater choice and because of greater affordability, they enjoy much higher standards of living than that was possible earlier. So this is exactly the kind of impact it has had on consumers. So among produce and workers, among those that are producing, it can be local producers or foreign producers, the impact of globalization has not been the same. It has been unequal, and let us see what exactly that is. The first one. So MNCs have increased their investments in India over the past 20 years, which means investing in India has definitely been advantageous for them. So MNCs have been interested in areas such as cell phones, automobiles, electronics, soft drinks, fast food services such as banking in urban areas. So in just these sectors that MNCs have invested, only these sectors are growing and not the other sectors. And with such a growth, many jobs and employments have been created. Also, the local companies that are producing basic components, for example, for fast food, right? For burgers, you need bread or bun. So these companies that manufacture the raw material like bread or wheat or bun, so these industries have also prospered. But not every other industry, just a few industries have prospered. Next one. Several of the top Indian companies have been able to benefit from the increased competition. How exactly? Because these Indian companies have invested in the latest kind of technology and the latest production methods, and ultimately raised their quality of products. And some Indian companies have also linked up themselves, that is, had a very good collaboration with foreign companies, and they have taken the kind of research facilities and the newer technology facilities that these foreign companies have to offer, and they have built on their company, and then they have reached the top level. So what examples of some top Indian companies? That is, they have Tata Motors, which have excelled in automobiles. You have Infosys, that is excelled in IT industry. You have Ranbaxy in the sector of medicines. You have Asian Paints, that is in the sector of paints, and Sundaram Fasteners by producing nuts and bolts. So these are some kind of Indian companies who have reached the top level because of some kind of increased competition with the foreign producers or some kind of collaborations with the foreign producers. And definitely globalization has created many opportunities for these companies. For example, the kind of case study that we discussed in the earlier classes when it had to deal with call centers, globalization has given us India, it has made use of the Indian manpower with respect to technical aspects, and they have set up many call centers as we can give consumer care to all these customer care to all the people who are consuming the products that are developed worldwide. Now that we have discussed what exactly globalization is, let us see as to what are the challenges that comes with globalization. First major challenges. What exactly happens to the small producers, the small domestic producers, right? Because they are definitely not a part of top Indian companies. They are just doing small businesses and small manufacturing activities. So do they compete with these foreign producers or do they perish? Let us see. So now that liberalization happened in 1991, exports and imports were possible. And there's definitely a big kind of competition that is happening with the local producers and the foreign producers, that is the MNCs. And usually the imported item of what is coming from another country would be half the price of what is being produced domestically. And hence that is very cheap. So some examples of uh, these industries where the domestic producers were hit very badly because of the stiff competition from the other countries such as MNCs are those of batteries, capacitors, plastic toys that I've explained to you in the Chinese case study, tires, dairy products and vegetable oil. So these are those kind of industries that have been badly affected. And you should also know that these small industries that are present in India employ the largest number of workers, that to around 20 million in the country only after agriculture. So agriculture employs around 75%, and right after agriculture it is the small industries in India that are employing these people. Next challenge, competition and uncertain employment. So let us see what this is. So there is a lot of competition that is happening after liberalization, and many employers, they prefer to employ workers flexibly, right? So what exactly does flexibly mean? That means workers' jobs are no longer secure, which means only for a certain short period you will be given some work and not like a contractual basis. So let us take the case study of a garment factory to understand this challenge better. So there are many MNCs in when it comes to the garment sector that are present in America and Europe, and they order their products from the Indian markets or the Bangladesh markets. And these large MNCs with a large network worldwide, so they look for cheaper goods that are available in different small countries like India and Bangladesh. So ultimately they can buy these cheaper products, put in a brand name and sell it to different kind of countries and ultimately get some kind of profit. So to get such kind of large big bulk orders from Europe and America, Indian garment exporters, they try very hard to cut down on their costs. How exactly? They cut their costs down on cotton. They end up paying the laborers, as to the workers who are working in these garment factories, very low amounts. So, when earlier a factory used to employ workers on a contractual permanent basis, now they employ workers only on a temporary basis, because this MNC in America and Europe has told, please produce a bulk of goods for this period and we will pay you only for this period. So, even the labor in India are employed only for that period where the production has to happen. And because of this less temporary time that you have to produce the garments, the workers are made to work for long hours, and there is absolutely no kind of overtime wage payment that is being given. And especially when it comes to times of festivals or peak seasons, they have to work twice more. So now we have seen the kind of challenge that happens. There are two challenges that you have seen earlier. So now that we've seen the challenge, let us see the kind of struggle that it has to take for us to get a kind of free and fair globalization. So now we have seen there are some people who have taken the advantage of globalization. There are one who are, downsiding the kind of globalization. The effects are being downsided on them. So we have also seen that people with high skills, a good education, or urban rich people, they have made the best use of such new opportunities. On the other hand, small producers or people under agriculture have not gotten the equal benefits as to what people with education and etc. have got. So now that globalization is everywhere throughout the world, the main question has arisen as to how to make it more fair, how to make it more equal. So fair globalization definitely would create opportunities for everyone and ensure that the benefits are passed on to every citizen, every producer of our country. So the only way how this globalization can be made fair is by the intervention of the government, when government enters the picture and makes policies, right? Its policies must protect the interests not only of the rich and the people who are powerful, but for all the people in the country. So there has been massive campaigns and representation by people's organizations that have taken place and have influenced important decisions that are ultimately taken relating to different kinds of foreign trade and investment at the WTO. So this main thing has demonstrated that people also play a major role in uh, struggling to bring about a fair and a free globalization. So let us see how the government has stepped in and created such policies to protect the ones who are not getting the benefits of globalization. Firstly, so it can ensure that the kind of labor laws that are there are properly implemented and workers are not ill treated, but they are given their respective rights, right? And you can kind of reduce the trade, increase the trade barriers, that you can that advantage is finally passed on to the domestic producers because there is lesser competition. And you can support small producers to improve their performance till they become strong enough to begin the main competition with the foreign producers. If necessary, the government can use trade and investment barriers, as I've told you, mainly in the area of agriculture, because Indian agriculture employs the highest number of people, and its percentage in GDP is also very high. Then India, as it is a member of WTO, it can negotiate at its meetings to protect the workers for fair rules. And it can also align with other developing countries who are going through the same issues or have similar interests to fight against the domination that has finally taken up by the developed countries, mainly at the WTO meetings. Now let us briefly see a summary as to what we have covered in this chapter. So we have defined what exactly globalization is. It is the rapid integration of the countries through foreign investment and foreign trade. And we have seen the kind of role MNCs play in making globalization happen. Then we have seen the role of technology, how it has fastened or enabled globalization. Then we have also seen another factor, that is liberalization of trade and investment, how it has facilitated the process of globalization. Then we have seen at the international level the kind of role WTO plays at being a very good regulatory body at regulating the kind of different government policies each government has. But we have also seen the kind of challenges that globalization comes with. That is, there is a lot of inequality. Many sectors are taking the advantages of globalization, but there are many sectors that are being, into a loss. So that has to be covered up with the help of government intervention. Fair globalization, as I've told you, would create opportunities for everyone and also ensure that the benefits of globalization, of whatever is the advantages that are produced, the positive outcome that globalization has given out, are shared by everyone better.